scholarships. Our CCRSP speakers for this year, 2022-2023, were included in meetings such as Sanderson, Lockwood Phillips, Reverend Odin, Sheriff Park, Councilman Walker, the NAACP distinguished Mr. and Mrs. Colleen James Walker, also the Mayor Sharon Walker and Commissioner Bob Kavanaugh, and you are all welcome to. And thank you for those of you who have already come to speak at our meetings. And we will introduce our CCRSP Scholarship Chair, Lucy Bond.
Wow. Anyway, I'm Lucy Bond. And I am the chair for the scholarship for our group, the Carteret County Retired School Personnel. I want you to know that we've given away over $110,000 since 2012. I'm sad to say that in 2021 we did not have any scholarship applicants. We had one last year, and that was a renewal. So we want to really promote our scholarship, and I want to tell you the standards that we have through the North Carolina Community Foundation. We have the Carteret County Retired School Personnel Scholarship Endowment, and the standard for that would be a graduating senior from a Carteret County Public High School with a minimum 2.5 GPA, who serves as a positive role model for other students, has applied for admission to an accredited 2- or 4-year college or university as a full-time student, and plans to pursue a degree in education. The Geraldine Mayo Beverage Scholarship Endowment, a graduating senior from the Carteret County Public High School with a minimum 2.5 GPA, a positive role model for others, has applied for admission to an accredited 2- or 4-year college or university as a full-time student, and plans to pursue a degree in education to become a certified teacher of vocational education in fields such as business, agriculture, industrial arts, family and consumer education, or health occupation education. So these are both for students who plan to go into education. So we hope that during this next year we can promote this scholarship and hopefully promote the idea that teachers are important, and we want them in our schools. Was that the end?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
It was, but we appreciate y'all, and y'all are awesome, and thank you.
Thank you.
Come back next month and you get 3 more minutes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up, I've got Miss Jeannie Gray.
Hello, my name is Jeannie Gray, and I'm representing Croatan High School tonight. I live in Cape Carteret and have twin girls that are going to be freshmen in Croatan, so a stressful time. But I have one that plays tennis, one that plays volleyball. So tonight I'm here to speak on behalf of many of the Croatan tennis families who have all helped contribute to these comments. The bond referendum project list for Croatan High School includes the construction of 6 new tennis courts. I'd like to share a few of our thoughts with you. Tennis at Croatan is alive and well. Both men's and women's teams, as well as the dual teams, have consistently excelled during the past 10 years. Coach Jim Sheehan is an excellent coach with a passion for teaching his players the game he loves. The 3 courts that are presently on the Croatan campus have been there for 25 years. In that time, nothing has been done to maintain them. This is what the student athletes are being asked to play on. It is totally unacceptable. If you have doubts about what I'm saying, just go ride by them and you'll see the nets flapping in the breeze. You'll see the pavement is cracked and uneven and not conducive to tennis, especially to the level that he's trying to bring our team to. Coach Sheehan has gotten several quotes on the 6-court project, and the best of those from a North Carolina business comes in well below the $340,000 estimated in the bond referendum project breakdown. He has also secured several local sources willing to help fund the project. So our question is, why then do we have to continue to wait to get the project started? The academic project at Croatan has already begun. The contractors for that job are not the same contractors for the tennis project, so why can the 2 projects not happen at the same time? Once completed, who will be in charge of maintaining the courts? If it will be the school system, it would make sense to stagger the building of new facilities at Croatan West and East. Currently, all three of these schools are using the Parks and Rec facilities at Fort Benjamin, and scheduling for the season is a nightmare. Croatan is overdue for the facility that has been part of the referendum that was passed in 2020 by the taxpayers. We have plans already drawn up and are ready to start. By staggering the installation of courts, costs to maintain would not burden the school system all at the same time. So we just ask that you consider that, and if it's possible for us to get started sooner rather than later, we are willing and ready and able.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Okay, next up, I've got a Mr. Eugene Thompson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eugene Thompson. I'm here for you to speak today about the support of the Carteret County School Board keeping Master Early College program going as it is now. I have 2 rising seniors at Mass, and I have a freshman that will be entering West. As you're aware, the original reason for closing Mass in 2019 was funding. Funding has since been provided, and yet you continue to still address this year after year. Why do you insist on closing a cooperative, innovative high school program for the students of Carteret County Public Schools? As I speak to the citizens of this county, the citizens that you serve, they all support Master Early College. And ask if I know why you're so intent on closing this program. I have no reasonable answer to give them. I've attended several meetings of this board in dealing with math and have yet to hear someone come here and speak against this program. If the citizens you serve want to see this program continue, why are you proceeding with this action? Why was this program initiated if you only want to close it after 2 classes? You never give it a chance to succeed or fail. Why can't we proceed with this program to see if it will succeed? Speaking of the 2 classes, each class began with 50 students. Some students have come and gone, and others have entered this program. Approximately 46% of the students were or are zoned for West Carteret, 30% were zoned for East, and approximately 24% were zoned for Croatan. So the argument of we're taking away from one school more than another doesn't make sense to me. The class of 2022 and 2023 have earned 18 trade certificates, 21 associate degrees, with more to come from the class of 2023. Mass students have won numerous awards for academic and extracurricular activities. And during their time at Mass, these students have endured years of anguish over the closing of their school, numerous administrative and staff changes. While your decision will not affect the class of 2023, which my daughters are in, it will affect future Carteret County students that may have used this program and made it a success like it's already been. So I appreciate you listening to me, and I have one other question, and maybe this is more for central office than anywhere else, but why are the schedules for the students of Mass still not complete a week before they start school? That's unfathomable to me. They're starting school on Tuesday, and they don't even have schedules yet. They may have their college schedules, but they don't have their high school schedule. And they're starting school next week. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Next up, I've got Ms. Colleen Thompson.
Good evening, everyone. I spoke at the last meeting. I'm speaking again, once again, in favor of MAST. At the last meeting, Mr. McLean, who's not here this evening, was kind enough to come up to our daughter who spoke at the last meeting and inform her that his high school years were not the best years of his life, and the best was yet to come, because she broke down crying because her school is disappearing in front of her. Since that meeting, the principal's been transferred out. They've lost another full-time teacher, and in the spring they will have 1, maybe 2 teachers for 1 hour a day. My kids deserve more than 2 teachers for 1 hour a day. They are not adults. They want to be adults, but they are not adults. They need structure, and they need organization, and they need somebody who actually cares where they are during the school day. Somebody for 1 hour a day is ridiculous. And so I don't know if that's a Board of Education problem, a central office problem, but it needs to be spoken out loud and it needs to be addressed. They've been treated like garbage. My children have been treated like garbage. And they're not here tonight. Even the one who refused to give up at the last meeting, refused to give up and spoke. Tonight she said, I'm not going. I'm not going to talk to those people because they don't care about me.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. And that concludes our public comment for the evening. We will now move on to approval of the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Reverend Goodwin has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Chadwick. All in favor, raise your right hand. Perfect. Consent agenda has been approved. We will now move on to Mr. Blair Probst for a second read.
Good evening, Board. So before you have second read policies. These policies come from the North Carolina School Board Association's Fall 2021 and Spring 2022 update packets. Many of the revisions are much the same as usual. They mirror modifications in state board policy, changes in federal and state legislation, and precedent established by case law. Additionally, there are editorial wording, legal references, and cross-references that were changed as well. Those are indicated in the information for you. There was only one policy that was revised since first read. Inadvertently, there was 2 local provisions in our attendance policy that was deleted in one of the previous revisions. The language was reinserted into the policy with the assistance of Mr. Whitford. Those policies were in regards to excessive absences. We require that students be 91% of the time present for instruction when it comes to middle school and elementary school. And then for high schools, we require that the credit is in question after 9 absences. And so that information was added back into the attendance policy. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Out of curiosity, Blair, how are special exceptions handled regarding that attendance policy? I mean, there are certain cases that are...
Sure. Each school at the high, are you speaking specifically about high school?
Yeah, I guess so.
High school, each school has a committee, and the committee sits down and looks at over the absences for each student to make a determination if there's any situation that some circumstances that need to be taken into consideration as to whether credit needs to be lost or not.
So somebody who has a medical issue or something like that, I'm sure would qualify.
All that's taken into consideration.
Do they get any kind of extra little help as far as, I guess it could depend on the teacher, as far as kind of trying to make up for those losses?
Each program has a credit recovery. Each school has a credit recovery at the end of the year, so that's an option as well. Some of the times when they look at these situations and there is excessive absences, there are times where schools will put them on plans for the next coming semester. If you don't miss so many absences, then you'll get credit for the previous semester. So there's a number of things they look at and a number of options they give.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Probst? All right, you are up for a first read.
Mr. Chair, is there the potential for a motion to approve these policies?
Good call. Just testing you. I come back from vacation.
I'll move to approve the
Thank you. Mr. Day has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Wheatley. All in favor, raise your right hand. Very good. Thank you all so much for taking care of me.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Jackson.
First read?
First read, yes, sir. These policies come from a few different update packets, some that we had missed, and we went back and got some clarity on some information for those. But the majority of them come from the spring 2022 packet. Again, many of the revisions are the same as we talked about in second read. However, there's 3 policies that have some local changes to them. Policy 2300, which is board meetings. The language was revised to maintain consistent language across all our policies in referring to the school advisory councils, which we also call the PAC councils as well. We had different language in different policies, and we wanted to clear that up. Policy 6305, safety and student transportation, and policy 7510, leave. These policies were revised to remove the temporary language regarding COVID-19 protocols due to the Department of Health and Human Services removal of the toolkit. And then one other item of note is that policy 4325, drug and alcohol, and then policy 6125, administering medicines to students, and policy 7240, drug-free and alcohol-free workplace, implements a prohibition of use of possession and distribution of substances containing CBD and THC on school campuses or at school events. And so those are the policies for first read.
Any questions for Mr. Probst on that first read? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Probst.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we're going to talk letters training presentation from Ms. McClenny.
Good evening, Board. I am excited to share with you a professional development, I wouldn't say opportunity, but a journey that we're going to set sail on in a couple of weeks with all of our pre-K through fifth grade teachers and administrators. And that training is based on the science of reading. And I wanted to share a little bit about what that entails and what our teachers will be learning and how we'll be supporting them through this process. I did not spell letters wrong. That is the name of the training that we are going to be going through, and that stands for the Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. So this came about due to Senate Bill 387, the Excellent Public School Act of 2021. And that legislation stated that by 2025, all pre-K through fifth grade teachers will have been trained in the science of reading. That legislation also specified that we would go through letters in that training. It also said that the state would provide a reliable, valid diagnostic assessment for students in grades K through 3. We currently have that, so we are ahead of the game with that in Dibbles 8. Also mandates that as a district, we submit literacy plans every year to the state where they will make sure we are looking at our literacy instruction through the lens of science of reading, and that we include in that our reading camp, our summer program, to address deficiencies in foundational reading skills. It also mandates that we will have individual reading plans for all students who are below proficient in those foundational skills. That's nothing new for Carteret County. We have constantly put plans in place for our K-3 students when they are not meeting those standards or those benchmarks in reading skills. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what in the world is science of reading. Well, it's just that. There is a body of research that describes how the brain works and how individuals learn to read. So we will embark on a 2-year journey through this letters training in which we will understand how the brain works, what part of the brain is responsible for that part of learning, and then how do we put practices into place that are efficient and effectively teaching our young readers how to read. It's based on evidence-based practices, and it's going to guide the instruction that we provide in the classroom for all teachers in pre-K through 5th grade. As important as it is to understand that this is extensive research that we will be engaged with, it's important to know what it's not. And science of reading is not a fad. It's nothing new, in fact, and it's not a program. It's not a manual. It's not a curriculum that we will put in the hands of the teachers and say, start here, go here, and students will be proficient. It's not a quick fix. It's not a standard that a student's going to be tested on. This is truly an opportunity for teachers and educators to learn the how of teaching, the science of how we deliver instruction. And so we are excited to start that journey in I say 20 plus years, because if I tell you how many, you'll figure out how old I am. But in my 20 plus years, there has never been an initiative of this magnitude that is focused on professional development in terms of how we teach. And that is exciting to be a part of. Real quick, let me put this graphic up by Nancy Young, who is one of the leading researchers in reading instruction and how students learn to read. And I want you to think about reading and writing being a ladder. And students are somewhere on that ladder. Well, the bottom part of that ladder, 10 to 15% of our students' research says have to have a system code for how to learn to read. They need letters and science of reading, and they need it in a repetitive fashion. Learning to read is very difficult for them. When you go up that ladder a little bit, 40 to 45% of our kids require a code system for learning to read. It's not quite as hard. They may not need as much repetition, but they have to have that to be a proficient reader. As you go up further, you have up to 35% of our students who, with just a broad instructional approach, will get it. Then you have about 5 to 10% of our students who it's effortless. They get it. And so the question is, how does science of reading serve all students? Well, what we know about our students who are at the top of that ladder, it may not catch them when they're in kindergarten through third grade, but as they progress through school, not having that code-based system to learn to read will impact how they write, how they spell, how they attack text that they may not be familiar with. So science of reading is for all students, and it provides us the map to know what practices we need to put in place to serve students. So what does it mean for us? All pre-K 5 teachers will embark on a 2-year journey that is about 160 hours of training, spread out over 2 years. Part of that is self-paced through a module format where they will log in and do with an online system. And then the other part of that is some face-to-face instruction, some live instruction. We are going to have our administrators and assistant principals take a part of that. Their course is 1 year. It doesn't go in depth. It's a little bit more broad view from that. And what else it means for us is that we as a district and at the school level have to vet every instructional resource we have to be certain that through the lens of science of reading, it is in alignment with that. Before we purchase anything, we need to make sure it's in alignment with what research says. That's good practice, and that's something we've been doing for years as well. So a timeline of what this looks like. I told you the 2 years for the training to be completed. We're going to have a district-wide kickoff on August 23rd, and we're going to have every pre-K through 5th grade teacher in one place. And we're all going to understand what it is we're going to do. We're going to understand how we're going to support them at the district and at the school level, and what we can expect to get out of this training as we move forward. So this first year, we're going to focus on 4 units, which is Volume 1. Next school year, the 23-24 year, we will begin to implement Volume 1, and then we will be trained in Volume 2. By 2024-25, we will implement Volume 2, and I'm a data person. I want to know, when can I see results? And so by 25-26, we will see positive outcomes in kindergarten and first grade data once we have these practices in place. And then the next year, we anticipate to expect positive outcomes for K-3 students as they move along. We are training 4th and 5th grade students. It's important to know why, because reading is developmental, and if you don't get it in K-3, we got to get it in 4 or 5, because the older students get, the more difficult it is. Now, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Carteret County Public Schools has been very successful. And I want you to know as a board, we are not abandoning the practices we know that work. We view this as an opportunity to add tools to our toolbox so that we can serve all students as we move forward. So we'll continue to provide systematic instruction. This past year, we implemented that in all of our K-3 classrooms with phonics. We'll use strategies to ensure that kids have lots of exposure to different types of text and genres of text. And we'll continue to be very data rich and look at the data to make sure that we have students growing at a rate that will lead them to proficiency. And I love this quote: "Informed teachers are our best insurance for reading failure." There are a lot of programs out there, but programs don't teach kids, teachers do. And I will tell you, having started the letters training prior to everyone else, I wish I had it 20 years ago when I walked in a classroom, because it will positively impact the outcomes for kids. So that's just a little bit about what we're going to do, but we are excited about the opportunity we have to learn and grow and reach kids even more so as they go through our school system. Any questions on letters?
You seem to be fired up about it, which gets me a little bit fired up. I appreciate it. I've got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
It seems to me that there's probably going to be a cost associated with this. Is the state footing that cost?
The state did foot some of the cost.
Of course.
And so we used some of our ESSER funding as well to train some additional people. The state set how many teachers, and then they would train a principal. We wanted to make sure our reading specialist and everyone that has direct contact with a child is trained in this. And so we put some money into that. And then a couple months ago, when we talked about ESSER funds, we asked for some additional money with that to also help cover some of the costs with providing teachers a couple of hours every other week that they could step aside, work on this, and by a couple hours, maybe lining that up to their planning period so we're not pulling them away from teaching kids. But it's a lot of work to ask a teacher to do this at the end of a day. And so we want to support them through that as we go through it.
So is this something that's perpetual in the Carteret County school system?
Yeah, this is perpetual across the state.
And at some point, we will run out of ESSER's money.
We will run out of ESSER's money. One of the parts that we're working on, we will receive funding every year with Read to Achieve money. And they've asked us to look at sustainability plans. And so we hope to have one of our staff members trained to be a trainer so that as new staff come on board, we've got that built in-house and we don't have to go outside to do that. So we're developing plans to make sure that we can sustain it and keep it at the forefront of what we do with instruction.
Well, thank you for thinking down the road for us. We appreciate that. That doesn't always happen.
There's a whole team, not just me, that's thinking about
the whole team.
I do have a question. So like, when we have a new teacher who's just graduated college and they step in, what is the time frame that they have? I know we have 2 years to complete this, but what is their time frame and when do they
2 years of when they start.
2 years from
So if we hire a teacher, a beginning teacher in January, their 2 years starts when they are hired. The other part of the law that is beautiful 5 years down the road is that the state is working with our colleges and our universities to make sure that this training is embedded into their teacher preparation programs so that they're ready to hit the ground running and don't have this right on top of being a beginning teacher.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Fantastic, because you get to go again.
Okay.
Yes. Now you have summer programs presentation.
Yes. Summer's a fantastic time. It's actually one of the busiest times in schools, even when students aren't there, because we have principals and custodial staffs getting our buildings ready. But we were very fortunate this year to provide some summer programs that allowed us to have kids in our building throughout the summer. And so for just a few minutes, I want to highlight some of the things that happened across the district as we move forward. We had our Read to Achieve summer program camp. That again is based off of the law that we have to provide. We had this educational program by law has to be outside of the instructional calendar year. And so we provided that for students in grades 1st through 3rd grade. Law requires it in students last year we're looking at this past year, who were 2nd and 3rd graders. It allows us to invite 1st graders. We chose to do that because we do know that this camp does in fact help us with that traditional summer slide. And so this provided the opportunity for kids to be engaged in explicit and pretty intense reading instruction for 72 hours over the course of 3 weeks. We had 6 locations. We hired 59 staff members to help run that. We did have almost 300 students attend, which is fantastic. One of the other requirements that we do report on is how many more students in those 3 weeks reached proficiency. And we did have 50 more kids reach proficiency out of that. And that is really good. That is extremely, extremely good. And of those that didn't reach proficiency, we got them just that much closer, though, in those 3 weeks. And so we're excited to get them back and hit the ground running with them. So we provided Read to Achieve, but we also provided our first AIG camp. This was for rising middle school students. They were invited to come, and they had a week of coding and robotics and forensic science and video production. They love YouTube, and they started learning how to create YouTube videos and engineering and science. A fantastic enrichment extension activity for our academically and intellectually gifted students. This would not have been made possible without community partners with the aquarium, the Carteret County Sheriff's Office, Cherry Point. We had the Emergency Management Center and the Division of Marine Fisheries partnered with us to ensure that we had a great camp for those kids. We were able to have 2 locations for our first year, which was fantastic, Moorhead Middle and Broad Creek Middle. We hired 8 staff members to facilitate that and had 67 rising middle school students attend that. And it was a wonderful week to hear those kids talking and working together and problem solving. They had an absolute blast, and we sure hope we have an opportunity to provide that again. The next camp I want to talk about is a brand new one that we had this year. It was Camp Rebound, and this camp was created with the promise of acceleration, meaning we focused on rising middle schoolers. We know middle school took a hard hit over the last couple of years, and so we invited those students who were not yet proficient, that were on the cusp of being there, that needed a little extra boost, and we provided instruction in reading and math. Now, instruction in terms of if I'm a rising 6th grader, I received 6th grade instruction. We were front loading with them in reading and math of some of the skills they needed to boost in to be ready to hit the ground running when they started school. And so we had, again, amazing community partners, because the beautiful part of this camp is that it was 50 hours long, 25 of it on academic, and the other 25 were on experiences. Real world experiences in our community where they could see what they were learning in real life in real time. And so we partnered with the town of Beaufort, the Duke Marine Lab, all the things, the aquarium, Learning Lab 360. I don't know if you saw that big truck, I guess, but our kids had a wonderful time in there with some virtual reality. And I do want to mention that the Brad Sneeden Memorial Fund did help fund some of those experiences as well. And Carolyn Sneeden was excited to be able to be partner with us to provide those science opportunities for our kids. And I've mentioned already that it was 50 hours. We had 4 locations. We had 36 staff members run that camp, and 193 students participated. A great experience for everyone with that. And last but not least, we're going to talk about some of our CTE camps. Now, these are not new camps, but we were able to expand a bit this year with some grants that we were able to get. Our first camp is the Cash Camp, and this is for rising middle schoolers. And the focus is on culinary, agriculture, construction, health science, and exploration. We offered 2 sessions this year. In the past, we've only offered 1 week. So we had 2 separate sessions for rising 6th through 8th graders, and those kids had a blast. They had a chance to work with our high school CTE teachers in the fields of culinary, agriculture, construction, health science, and to hear middle schoolers talk about which parts they liked the best. And I'm definitely not going into health science, or I'm definitely not doing that, which is exactly what we wanted the camp to be. We wanted it to be an opportunity for them to have that exposure and experience. We did have 12 CTE staff members work those camps, and we had 6 community partners as well, and we would not be able to pull it off without the community partners. 34 Degrees North, Beaufort Hotel, Carteret Healthcare, Chick-fil-A, Gregory Pool, Mark Hanula Construction, Sandy's Flower Shop, and Trade Wind Farms. They all had their own stethoscopes and were listening to heartbeats from the farm animals. And we had 78 total students that attended those 2 weeks, and again, an incredible opportunity that we hope to build upon in the future. And I want to mention this, the 3 high school students that came and volunteered their time. They were the true stars of the show to those middle schoolers and really set the tone for what opportunities they may have when they get to high school. And the last one I want to talk about is our class camp. Now, CLASS is our Career and Leadership Academy for Successful Students. And on that left side, you'll see all the community partners. Carteret Community College, the foundation, on. And I won't read through all of those, but I do want to say that those 19 partners made a bigger difference than they probably even know at the end of this experience. And let me tell you a little bit about it. It was June the 6th through the 16th, and it was for rising 10th through 12th graders that were invited and selected to go to that. And they spent a couple of days working on some team building in the escape rooms. They spent time learning dining etiquette. All of them received their Stop the Bleed certification, and they worked on interview skills as well as touring the community college and letting them see exactly what the college had to offer for them. They then worked 20 hours over the course of about 5 days in one of those community partners, partnered up with them, and so they had real workforce experience out in the community. At the end of their workforce experience, they came back to, the camp was at Mast High School. They came back and worked with NC Works on resume writing. And then they had a closing ceremony where each one of those students got up and talked about their experience. And you saw passion in those kids. They were really beginning to find their place and what they wanted to explore after they graduated. And so we had 3 CTE staff members, 19 community partners, thank the community college for allowing us to be there and including us in that, and 14 total students. And we really, really want to make sure that we continue this and expand it so that we can provide those opportunities for even more students. So it's been a busy summer. School doesn't stop when school stops. We've been able to have them in our buildings and in our community, and a great experience for everyone. So do you have any questions about summer programs?
My Owen went to AIG camp, and you know how much he loves school every day. And he woke up every day excited. I had to bribe him to first day, and then he was up ready every day.
It was amazing. Great experience.
Yeah, I've also gotten some really positive feedback from especially Camp Cash Camp.
My son, my oldest son went, he loved it.
I've heard that it was excellent.
Awesome.
Maybe Travis and I will go next year.
I went by Newport Middle last week one day. They told me to come by and the learning lab was there, and I got to go swim with the sharks and dolphins, and that
made me a little bit nauseous.
I jumped when I ran into something on there, like very realistic.
All right, well, we appreciate that presentation, and you're still up. Jennifer Johnson as well.
Myself this time.
All right. This is the 2022-23 Carteret County Public Schools Strategic Plan presentation.
Absolutely. And so we're here tonight to share with you the strategic planning process, where we are now and where we hope to head over the next school year. So where are we now? The current strategic plan that we had in place was scheduled to expire in 2020. However, the decision was made to continue that plan as we were in the throes of COVID, and our focus was on keeping kids in school and keeping teachers and students safe, as it should have been, and how did we support learning in that new normal of what school had to look like during that time. So we maintained that strategic plan, but we've moved forward now to let's see where we are and let's begin that strategic planning process. I am so proud of the district that even though we were faced with those many, many challenges, we still maintained high standards, academic standards, and saw great results. All of our schools met growth during that 2021 school year. We were named USA's Today Best of the Best acknowledgement, and then every single school received their Purple Star status. And just a reminder that that is the status that they get for the support that they provide to military-dependent students. And so we didn't stop. We kept pushing forward, and we kept working hard and got great results with that. But now it's time to look ahead. We've gotten data of where we were in the pandemic, where we are now, and how do we move forward to continue to move Carteret County Public Schools in a direction of excellence. And so we have created a one-year strategic plan for the 22-23 school year. And that plan is designed to look at what we currently have in place and to build upon this year as we look to create a 5-year strategic plan that goes beyond this year. So we want to share just for a second about the process of this plan. I want you to know before we even get into it that it is research-based and data-driven. We looked at every piece of data that we could find since 2020 to see where we are. We've looked at research-based strategies of how we move forward, and we've based this on what we're already doing. So we're not putting something brand new in. We are building off of what we have in place to move forward. It includes programs and supports that the curriculum and instruction team here at Central Office have been looking at and working through that are in place, and it will be a springboard for how we develop our 5-year comprehensive plan. So we've looked at 4 focus areas, and those 4 focus areas say that Carteret County Public Schools will produce and support limitless learners, empowered educators, engaging environments, and connected communities. And so for just a second, we're going to dive into these focus areas. Focus Area 1, Limitless Learners, has 5 objectives, and these objectives should sound very similar because they've been in every strategic plan that I've been a part of for a long time. But number 1A is to increase the percentage of student groups that meet or exceed growth in grades 3 through 12 in ELA, math, and science. We had a system, every school met growth, but if you dig down deeper, are there groups that didn't? And we need to make sure that no child is left out as we look at ways we can serve them. 1B, increase the percentage of student groups meeting proficiency in grades 3 through 12 in ELA, math, and science. And then 1C, to increase the percentage of students who are proficient in reading by the end of 3rd grade. We know that after 3rd grade, if students aren't proficient, it's harder. It's more difficult for them, and so we want to make sure we have things in place. Some of the strategies that we've worked on are our professional learning communities, instructional frameworks, and really setting a standard of service post-COVID. Can I say post-COVID? Post-COVID that defines those practices and principles that are going to accelerate growth. 1D, objective is to increase the exposure and opportunities for students to participate in career and college-ready activities. We have career development coordinators at each of the high schools. We have a career development coordinator at our middle schools. We just this past year were able to bring in 5th graders to a day of exploring careers. So we want to really capitalize and build that partnership with our community college, our career development coordinators, special population coordinator that we have in the district this past year to really look at kids that may be at risk, for dropping out, and how do we support them with that as well. 1E, we want to increase the percentage of 4-year-olds who are enrolled in a state pre-K program. We know the power of pre-K, of setting the stage and the tone for that child's schooling and experience. And so we want to maximize how we do our pre-K roundups, how we get the information out about pre-K, strengthen our partnership with the Carteret County Partnership for Children, Division of Child Development, and we also now have, through a grant, a liaison, a transition liaison, who works with some of our students who may find themselves in homeless situations or in transitions, that we can support them so that they know the services and opportunities that we have for them as well. So focus area 1, in my opinion, my favorite, is limitless learners and how we're going to support and ensure that all of our students have success in their academic journey with our school system. The second one, well, we know we're not going to do the first if we don't empower our educators. And so our objectives for this, 2A, is to strengthen instructional support frameworks to foster collaboration and effective teaching practices. If we've learned anything post-COVID, and I'm going to continue to say post-COVID, is that we need to make sure we are really strong in those high research-based impact practices. So we need to focus on that, make sure we provide that training for teachers, and provide that ongoing support for teachers as they craft teaching in their classrooms. 2B, we want to increase opportunities for educator engagement and relevant professional development opportunities that will impact student outcomes. Relevant is the key word. We got to know what they need, we got to know what our students need, and how we can support them as the professionals that they truly are. And so we have this year, thanks to you approving this through our federal funding, we have instructional coaches that just started this past week who are already hitting the ground running with what those frameworks look like, how we build connections and relationships with teachers to provide the ultimate professional development, which is in the classroom. We will define that standard of service and make sure that professional development from a district level is supportive of the needs of the schools, and also recognizing that schools may have specific professional development needs for their particular staff or students, and honoring that in that process. The other part of an engaging environment is maintaining safe and secure schools. That's got to be the foundation for student success. If we don't have safe schools, then all those other things aren't going to happen. And so we want to continue to engage our county and our townships. We're very thankful about the SROs and getting those grants written and getting them in our buildings. Utilizing state funding and grants, access controls at the buildings, additional cameras. We've got fencing going up to help with security as well. Go guarding, our apps of See Something, Say Something. And so I cannot stress how important that is for everything else to happen. And so our pledge is that we will continue to keep that at the forefront of what we do each and every day. And 3B for engaging environments is we want to review and implement research-based practices and procedures to maximize student instructional time. One of the areas we've talked about a great deal is student mental health and what we can put in place to support students staying in the classroom but having their mental health and social emotional needs met. And so we have to make certain that we are reviewing data. We're looking at our positive behavior supports in the classroom. We've been fortunate to use some of our ESSER funding to put behavior and mental health support personnel in the district who can respond immediately and put those structures and supports in place. So for our engaging environments, that is our 3B for how we will keep students in class, because if you're not in class, you're not going to learn, and we want to make sure you feel safe and ready to learn in your classroom. And the third one, which is something we've talked about a great deal, is how do we increase our student cohort graduation rate? We have committed to exploring and engaging all stakeholders in this conversation to how do we keep them, how do we make them want to stay in school so that they see the possibilities for their future after they graduate with us. And so we will utilize our counselors, our interventionists, our at-risk coordinators, and we will continue to monitor and track data to ensure we have engaging environments for all students in all of our schools. And our fourth focus area, connected communities, the first objective is to maximize collaboration with all stakeholders to expand learning opportunities for all students. We want to increase our partnership with our business advisory, with our foundation. We want to increase our partnership with community college, who is already an incredible partner, but sharing the opportunities that our students have through dual enrollment to engage with the community college, as well as other connections through career and technical education. 4B, we want to utilize frequent and ongoing effective communication tools with all stakeholders. Post-COVID, we're excited that we have some of those restrictions lifted for us, and we want to make sure we are maximizing our communication tools, both internally from the district level to the schools, but also externally to ensure that the message of the great things that are happening in our district are out there, and that we're going to celebrate all the great things that are happening as well. So that is my portion, fast and furious, for the 22-23 plan. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Johnson now, and she's going to share what do we do now.
Thank you. We're going to give Jody a break from talking there a little bit. Good evening, board. I am excited to be a part of this dream team, really, to be bringing the strategic plan process to you in the next year. So we're going to talk about in just a minute what we're going to do this year. Just as a side note, in the previous district where I came from, we just completed this process. And then honestly, I said, I hope I never have to do that again.
Welcome aboard.
That's exactly how it went. But anyway, I really say that, but it was because it was a lot of hard work, but we also saw that it was very beneficial and very much needed to have a strategic plan that has a very clear focus and very clear goals that are measurable and can be reevaluated each and every year. So let me tell you how we're going to do that. So the fall and spring of 2022-23, again, we're following the one-year plan as Jody outlined that. Ms. McClenny, excuse me. We are going to, first of all, look at the mission and vision. And so that overarching, what is our mission? Where do we want to go? And then how do we get there? That's our vision there. And so how do we do that? That's really more of our internal stakeholders, engaging our school personnel as professionals. They know what a mission and vision of an educational system should look like. And so we want to really engage them in school staff meetings, strategic planning sessions, and see what their ideas are. Look at our old mission statements, look at great examples of other mission and vision statements, and create our own new mission statement and vision statements from there. So we'll be doing that throughout the year. But it's also important to engage stakeholders within our community. And so we want to do that by defining and owning, and as you can see, when we met as a team, we really wanted to set up a framework for this year through the Limitless Learners, Empowered Educators, Engaging Environments, and Connected Communities, so that we already have that in place, but then take those 4 elements and really ask our community, limitless learners, what does that look like? What 21st century skills do our students need in the classroom? What do they need today? Asking our business communities, what kind of workforce skill development or skills that you need, what do you need for our students to then produce? Asking our college partners, what kind of students do they need to be? What kind of students do we need to produce? So that is in addition to what do our limitless learners look like, not just in high school, not just a portrait like of a graduate, but what does it look like from pre-K all the way to 12th grade? Asking our educators, what does it look like for our educators to be empowered? How do we engage our environments or make sure our environments are very engaging for our students? So asking all of our stakeholders about that, and then connecting our communities, asking our community, how can we connect with you, working on those relationships and making sure. So what we're going to do is create questions around those 4 topics, those 4 focus areas for us, because those are our 4 most important things that we need to focus on in our district. And so we're going to engage our stakeholders by going to our PAC meetings, having the same presentation, asking those questions, gathering that data, really looking at who we're talking to, gather who's there and who's not, who's speaking, that kind of thing, and also take those same conversations to our teacher advisory councils, student advisory councils, staff meetings, et cetera, and just gather some really good, rich data and have that listening tour. And that was very important the last time that I went through this process as well. And then in the spring and the summer, what we'll do is we'll take all of that data and analyze it and process that feedback and really meet as a team and decide what do we hear? What are the themes? What do we need to work on? What do we see? What's in the current plan and how's that working this year? What do we want to keep? And then what do we need to add or take away from what's currently there? And then once we decide what that looks like, we will then create a guidebook for our district. It's not just going to be a black and white piece of paper that we maybe put on a shelf. We realized that was not very efficient and just doesn't help. And so we do want to make something that's a living document, that's a strategic plan and a district guidebook for you. And we will present that to you for board approval during the spring and possibly summer, not summer, but in the spring. But also we'll be working on this throughout the summer. But after board approval and we get that final draft, hopefully we will have some great pictures of our students, et cetera, some statistics of our district, and put all of that together in one great document and present that to our stakeholders. We ask them the questions. And so it's our responsibility then to turn around and say, this is what we heard, and this is how we worked it into our strategic plan, and this is how we're going to walk it out over the next 5 years. And so, and then not only that, are we rolling it out in the fall, but also it's important to keep those goals and objectives in front of the stakeholders through the shared communications. One of the things this year, like Jody spoke about in communications, is making sure that we're really communicating with our families and our communities. But if we do that in this way, it's just unified. We can keep talking about what our goals are, keep highlighting limitless learners and our engaged environments and our communities, et cetera. And so just keep that going so that we keep that in the front of their minds, and our communities will see that we are following through on that vision. It just makes me very excited as a communications professional to be able to do that as well. And then finally, we'll evaluate the success yearly and adjust that as necessary. I would expect that you would ask us for our goals and how they were measured and how we're doing, and we'll provide reports on those and have that plan really roll out for the next 5 years. So we have a big project ahead of us, but we're excited about that. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? If y'all need help with all this work, Dennis, Mr. Reverend Goodwin has said he would be.
We'll see you Monday at 8 a.m.
Thank y'all so much. I mean, can I do that? Can I just delegate?
I think the chair can.
Right.
Do whatever you want.
All right. Thank y'all so much for the time you put into this. Next up, we've got Mr. Paler, and we're going to receive some updates on capital and bond project.
Good evening, Board. First, I'll give you an update on capital projects. The roof at White Oak Elementary School that we talked about in June is now complete. We're just waiting on the warranty cards from the manufacturer, so it's very minor detail there. Painting is going on at Newport Middle School and Newport Elementary School, and there's flooring projects that are, there's a flooring project going on at Newport Elementary School, replacing the tile in the Chatham building, the 600 building, and we will get to Moorhead Elementary School and Beaufort Middle School. Their carpet will be replaced very soon. So that's all the capital projects that are going on right now. For bond projects, I have a couple of pictures for you to show. There's not a really exciting pictures just yet, but that'll come in the future. So at Croatan, you'll see, I just wanted to remind you what the new addition would look like, and it's the bottom right building on the picture there. That kind of now sits where the parking lot was, that it's been removed, as you'll see in a picture here. And that parking lot will be moved over toward Boguestown Elementary School. Just some of the site work, as I said, is not really exciting pictures. Mostly it's earthwork going on there, retention ponds created. We will make a new road that will connect the bus parking lot to Cougar Lane so that buses can pass through there. That'll be one of the first things that's done once the earthwork is complete. But just a couple of pictures, I'll click through them. You can see that work is being done. There's a power pole that had to be moved from one location to another because it happened to sit right where the road was going to be, of course. So that's the retention pond that's created. This is a laydown yard. Just so the work is being started at Croatan High School. As far as Newport Elementary School security wall, we went for months without rain, it seems like, and we started this project, and it seems like that it has rained every day. So, and you dig a 4-foot hole, a 4-foot deep hole, 4 foot wide in the ground, and it rains, and guess what happens? We have a moat. So, they spent many days pumping out water and trying to make progress. So you can see the foundation, the footer here is substantial. So, you'll see that this is 4 foot wide, and I say 4 foot deep. I haven't measured how deep it is, but they poured a footer in the bottom of this, and it's a foot thick with all this rebar coming out of it. So that's what it takes, I guess, to keep this 7 foot tall wall from blowing over in a hurricane. So this work's going on. That's the front of the school, and you can see this was today. The block has been there, and the masons were actually getting started today, laying block in the front. This is the back near the cafeteria, and you can see the block are laid there. So these are block, and then the brick will actually be go on top of the block. It'll be double-sided and 7 foot tall, like I said. This was, you see water in the moat. Has to get pumped out. And then the last picture, this is actually today, and you'll see the water's out and the blocks are going down. So hopefully by the end of the week, the block is complete and we can start backfilling in. We'll be above the ground enough that we can start filling in, cleaning up, and then the brick hopefully will go fairly quickly if we can get a break from the weather.
I'm impressed with that project. It's
impressive.
It's going to be very nice.
Yeah.
It'd be a nice
painting and rugs and wall. Time frame wise, are these going to be finished before?
Of course. No. In all honesty, the flooring, painting, the painting will not be done. As you know, we split the critical parts for students to return will be done. Then we'll have to do trim work and those things, outside painting. The wall, I feel really good about the masonry part. The doors, things that we can't control, they're ordered. I don't think the doors will be there, but we'll create a plan to secure those openings. It might be temporary doors, but we'll do something to where we'll be ready for kids to come back. Any questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Paylor? I just want to tell you, I know the timing for all these things was not in our favor, but I appreciate your patience and your diligence on this. I mean, you've been above and beyond, you've gone above and beyond, so thank you for everything you and your team have done.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have got Mr. McKay with some a presentation on access controls.
Thank you, Board. Came to you at the end of June with phase 1 of our access control at the front doors, replacing the cameras in those and access control to the office. We put out the bid shortly thereafter, July the 11th. Had a pre-bid meeting on July the 20th, came in last week, July the 28th. And we had one bidder. It actually was the bidder we would hope would bid on it. It's the one that we have a long history with NC Sound. That's also doing phase 1, which is nice for us that both pieces can now possibly also go coordinated together depending upon when we could get door parts here. But this will take us 377 doors in the system. All of them will be monitored. So if, for example, the back door there right behind Ms. Statler, if it was left open, we can set a time frame upon that of how long it gets left open before it text messages and or emails the principals or assistant principal of the building and or office staff. As well to that, we'll also have 148 access doors that will also have access with a card reader, an RF card reader beside it, and a pen pad beside it also. Doesn't take real long for students to be able to figure out if your ID badges become your keys, that if a teacher happens to leave an ID badge, that's your key. Well, during the school day, that would get you into the school building, but after hours, you would also have to have a pin along with that ID badge to be able to do that. That was some best practices that we learned on some trips with facilities support a few years back over to Clinton City Schools. And when we looked, this vendor was a total of $977,896.94. I would recommend to the board that we move in that direction. You'll see in your executive content, and you've also got that where we've asked to approve that. We have contacted the references. This company has done a site survey of all of our sites, which we felt was essential. When you walk from White Oak to Atlantic, our buildings are very different atmosphere. It's not the same as an inland school as well for some of the things that we would need to put on our doors to make sure they're long-lasting, hurricane-proof, the weather, you guys know that very well. Also, though, even though we had a long-standing relationship with NC Sound with Carteret County Schools, we also reached out to we asked for 3 school systems that they had worked with, whoever would have submitted the bid, reached out to those and was not surprised, very outstanding recommendations, all of them very high recommendations, and they would continue to use them if they had the opportunity to move forward with that.
Any questions? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I apologize, Reverend Goodwin, if I may, Mr. Chair. I just want to share with you that we're very grateful and excited about this project. If we did have a door that was propped open or accidentally left open, we would get that immediate contact, and multiple people would be getting that immediate contact. And for this to take care of all the exterior doors in our school system, we know is an important step forward in terms of keeping our students and staff safe. And so this does come as a recommendation of our full team.
Absolutely. And you know, in the bigger picture, I've been impressed with how rapidly you and Mr. Paler and our school system has addressed the safety issues in our school. That has been wonderful. It warms my heart knowing that y'all care so much about our kids. So thank you. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve access controls on all school exterior doors, Phase 2, as presented.
Reverend Goodwin has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Statler has made a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Has passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. McKay. I'm excited to see these keypads. And can I get a card?
No.
Well, I'll look at it and get excited.
Thank you, Board.
You're welcome. All right, Dr. Jackson, you're up.
Get to hear from Safrit.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, board members. This evening we have the opportunity, as we continue through the meeting, to honor some pretty amazing staff members who've served with great honor in our school system. I certainly appreciated hearing from the retirees of our school system and appreciate their active involvement. It certainly connotes the level of love and dedication that the men and women who serve in our school system have, not only while they're serving, but indeed throughout their life. As I begin, the first item that I'll share with you is the naming of the gymnasium at West Carteret High School, and I'd like to pause for a second and recognize Mr. Lancaster, who did the lion's share of the work of pulling this package together now over a year ago, and West Carteret principal, formerly Mass Principal Corey Johnson. We appreciate them being here this evening. Board members, as you know, naming facilities is a big deal, and it is guided by board policy, and rightfully so, because when we name something in perpetuity. The policy is Policy 9300, and it very specifically lays out the process for which individual buildings, rooms, or areas within the buildings could be named in memory or honor of an individual who's rendered extraordinary service to our school system, the community, or nation, or an individual who's helped our students succeed through significant financial contribution or donation of personal property. The policy goes on to say that any proposal to place a sign, a name, or a plaque on any property under the jurisdiction of the Board of Education must be reviewed by the superintendent before it's presented to the board for consideration, and that process did take place now over a year ago. I keep mentioning over a year ago because the policy goes on to say that commemoratives recommended to the superintendent, that the superintendent recommends then to the board, can be acted upon only after a period of time has elapsed, which shall be no less than 12 months. And so much of what you're hearing is deja vu because I shared it with you 12 months ago. And so we have followed policy in each of the two items that you'll have to consider this evening, and appreciate that the policy is in place. As much as we might have wanted to hurry along, I do appreciate that the board is very careful and deliberate when considering things like naming facilities. The following requirements from Policy 9300 are in place for before a commemorative can be approved. Again, the individual so honored should have rendered exemplary service in a particular school or facility of not less than 8 years, or should have rendered exemplary service to several schools in our school system over a period of not less than 15 years. So it's a pretty high standard. Individuals so honored should have either culminated their careers in Carteret County Public School System, and both the individuals you hear about this evening have, either retiring from our school system or passing away while still actively employed. Nominations are appropriate no less than 2 years following the date of culmination of service. And so it's not something that we could do as soon as someone retires. And so in both these cases, that standard has been met as well. The individuals must be recommended and sponsored through a group nomination, either a faculty, a group of students, PTA, advisory council, et cetera, as opposed to an individual nomination. Goes on to say that the individuals so honored due to a significant financial contribution, and it speaks to that. That's not the case for either of the two that we'll consider, or you'll consider this evening, but that is in place in policy should it be something we were considering. And so the first item that I'd like to share with you is at West Carteret High School. A group presented to me a proposal more than a year ago to rename the gymnasium the Craig P. McClanahan Gymnasium. Coach McClanahan served in this school system for 34 years. He began serving at West Carteret High School in 1998, where he taught, coached, and served as an athletic director. He retired in 2019. He is an extraordinary person and is incredibly well known. I've had many, many people come up to tell me about Coach McClanahan and all that he did for the school and how his legacy continues to live, particularly in the basketball program and throughout the school. I do appreciate all of the letters of support. I've shared those with you. I shared those with you last year. One of the letters that touched my heart was actually from one of the students who took the time to write a pretty intense letter about Coach McClanahan. As superintendent, I find that this proposal does meet all of the criteria listed in Policy 9300. It has followed the process as laid out in that policy, and I'd now like to recommend to the Board of Education to positively consider the request to name the West Carteret High School gym the Craig P. McClanahan Gymnasium. And Mr. Chair, certainly be be glad to hear from any board members and would bring that to you as a recommendation.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Do any board members have any statements they'd like to make?
Motion.
I'd like to hear your motion.
Move to approve the naming of the West Carteret High School.
He was an outstanding individual. I hear nothing but wonderful things all around. So,
When I think of West Carteret basketball, I think of Coach McClanahan.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is perfect.
Because you're young.
That's right.
All right, Reverend Gillen.
I move to approve the name of the West Carteret High School Gymnasium in memory of Craig P. McClanahan.
Reverend Goodwin has made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Day has made a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Very excited about that. So, and thank you so much for your work in putting that together in West Carteret. So,
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
Mr. Lancaster, Coach Lancaster, and Mr. Johnson has shared with me that anticipating your positive approval of that, the school will be putting together a ceremony, and the Board of Education, the community will be invited to be a part of that. And so we'll look forward to that at the appropriate time as the school decides. If I may.
You may.
Thank you. Moving along, there's also a proposal for the Board of Education to consider at Bogue Sound Elementary School. I shared with you a packet last year, and again, it's in your board materials this evening from Bogue Sound Elementary School. The Parent Advisory Council, the PAC Council there, submitted a proposal to rename the gymnasium. It's the Colleen Wilden Physical Education Center. Ms. Wilden served the school from 1998 until 2019, where she taught and served as a school leadership chair and led the beginning teacher program. She retired in 2019. In the packet are several letters, including a letter from a teacher who was mentored by Ms. Wilden. Again, as with Coach McClanahan, I've heard a lot of positive comments about her influence in the school. I do find that the proposal meets all the criteria in policy 9300, and each of the steps have been followed as outlined in the policy. And so, as superintendent, I recommend that the board positively consider this request this evening.
Fantastic. Any statements?
Motion.
All right. I'd love to hear your motion.
I move to approve the naming of the Bogue Sound Elementary School Gymnasium in memory of Colleen Wilden.
I've got a motion by Reverend Goodwin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Statler has made a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Jackson, and you are still up.
Thank you, sir. And that would be an honor of Ms. Wilden. She's not to the memory piece yet. I apologize if I misspoke. Thank you. Board members, this evening, I have and have shared with you and at your seats a request that the board made of me, and I'll let Mr. Day bring up the presentation. Thank you. Board members, this evening, I want to share with you the study that you requested on the question of closing Marine Science and Technology's Early College High School, known as MAST, after graduation of the class of 2023. In looking at this study, I did utilize, and our team did utilize, not only many conversations, certainly over the course of my tenure as your superintendent, but a list of guiding documents, starting with the statute that guides cooperative innovative high schools. The statute is listed there. MAST is a cooperative innovative high school as defined in statute. I also used the MAST application that was submitted by the school system and by Carteret Community College. And if I may pause for just a second, I'd like to recognize my colleague, Dr. Tracy Mancini, president of the college, and also the chief academic officer, Dr. Maggie Brown from the college. We certainly appreciate our incredible partnership with the college in lots of areas, and very thankful and appreciate their presence this evening. I also used as a guiding document, Board of Education resolutions, including the resolution dated July 29th, 2019, which approved the opening of MAST for that school year, and the resolution this board passed on April 5th, 2022. There were also a couple of Board of Education reports. The first was the July 20th, 2019 study on the question of closing MAST, a very comprehensive study that was actually compiled by Mr. Whitford. We certainly appreciate that. And then the MAST proposals presentation that I presented to the board in March of 2021. There's also each of the memorandums of understanding with Carteret Community College specific to the operation of MAST. The first dated May of 2018, then the MOU that was dated June of 2019, the MOU dated August of 2020, the MOU amendment that was dated April of 2021. And you'll notice a couple of those MOUs were either approved by the Board of Education but not the community college, or approved by the community college and not by the Board of Education. And then in August of 2020, that MOU was signed by both entities, and we certainly appreciate that. In terms of introducing the study, on April 5th, this board passed a resolution instructing the superintendent of the school system to conduct a thorough study on the Marine Science and Technologies Early College High School on the question of closing MAST after the graduation of the class of 2023. The resolution noted that General Statute 115C-72 provides for the closure of traditional schools, but that statute does not or may not apply to cooperative innovative high schools, and so that statute may not actually apply to MAST. However, the board felt like the statute would inform the board on this question, and so the study has been completed in accordance with that April 5th, 2022 resolution. The required items in that school closure statute, again 115C-72, are primarily the welfare of the students to be affected by a proposed closing, the geographic conditions, the anticipated increase or decrease in school enrollment, the inconvenience or hardship that might result to the pupils to be affected, the cost of providing additional school facilities in the event of such a closing, and such other factors as the board might consider germane. On July 2nd, 2019, the Carteret County Board of Education authorized a comprehensive study on the question of closing MAST, and on July 20th, Mr. Whitford, the board attorney, produced a complete study pursuant to General Statute 115C-72 on the question of closing MAST. This study is designed to consider the specific directives of the Carteret County Board of Education in that April 5th, 2022 resolution. Specifically, the board asked that the following be considered. 1, first and foremost, the welfare of students. 2, school enrollment and geographic conditions. 3, inconvenience and hardships. 4, costs that would be associated with closure. 5, similar programming. 6, the sentiments of the Carteret County Board of County Commissioners. 7, the sentiments of the Carteret Community College. And then 8, any other relevant information. Current MAST students who are currently in the school would not be impacted if the school closes after the graduation of the class of 2023 because they would have graduated. If we did have students who did not graduate, we would certainly serve those students because we certainly want every student to graduate. There are, though, 2 groups of students that we identified who would be impacted if the school were to be closed after the graduation of the class of 2023. The first are those students who might apply to attend MAST in the future, and then second, the students who would not apply to attend MAST in the future, as they would be impacted by the students who might have gone to MAST being back in the traditional schools. And so we tried to consider both of those groups of students. North Carolina Department of Public Instruction identified the benefits of cooperative innovative high schools like MAST in a March 2022 report to the General Assembly. I did use that report of the General Assembly as part of this study. That report states, in part, direct quote, students, including many at risk of dropping out and historically underserved, continue to see increased academic outcomes that surpass those of students across the state. Later in the report, it says, quote, an increasing number of students are benefiting from new opportunities, leading to stronger outcomes with higher rates of academic achievement, graduation, and post-secondary enrollment and completion. Croatan High School, as you heard a little earlier in one of Ms. McClenny's presentations, East Carteret High School and West Carteret High School all earned U.S. News and World Report Best High School banners in the previous year. They all met or exceeded growth expectations in 2020, 2021, and we're looking forward to receiving the report for 21-22, hopefully sooner rather than later. They were all awarded North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's Purple Star Award for service to military-connected families. The principals of all three traditional high schools were asked if students who might apply to attend MAST could be appropriately served in the three traditional high schools. The answer from each of those principals in individual interviews was an emphatic yes, they could. When asked if the presence of those students who might have otherwise applied to attend MAST would have an impact on students who would not apply to attend MAST, each independently answered that there would not be a negative impact if those students were in our traditional schools. In our schools, we do have a myriad of supports for students, particularly in the traditional high schools. We have school counselors, we have intervention specialists, we have social workers. Our traditional schools are using innovative scheduling practices, paired classes that are referred to as skinnies. You might hear that term skinny. Essentially, in a 90-minute high school class period, the school will schedule 2 classes, and so instead of 1 class for 90 minutes for a semester, you have 2 classes for 45 minutes, and it lasts the entire year. And so it gives the students the longevity of a full year in those classes. And so skinnies is one example of an innovative scheduling practice. Schools are also using 5th period classes or before or after school opportunities for students. West Carteret High School has started a graduation support academy that has done very well. Croatan and East Carteret are also exploring the potential for academies, which is the school within a school concept, trying to make a school feel and act smaller and more personal for students. We do have a Career and College Promise Advisor, which is a shared position with Carteret Community College. The previous person in that role is retired, and we've been able to identify someone in the school system to move forward into that role. We appreciate that. We have career development coordinators at all of our high schools, and then you heard reference earlier to our special populations coordinator, who works very specifically with students who have special needs. On the question of school enrollment, I pulled our month 2 ADM. ADM is average daily membership for each of our high schools going back to the 2012-2013 school year. One of the things that I tend to be asked about is the enrollment of the school system. Is it going up? Is it going down? What's happening with enrollment? It's an incredibly complex question in Carteret County in 2022, and I have a hard time trying to answer it. Because our enrollment was initially declining prior to Hurricane Florence, the thought might be that maybe that's what's happening. But that enrollment has been exacerbated in terms of the direction it might be going by Hurricane Florence, by Hurricane Dorian, by 3 school years now impacted by the pandemic, and so it's difficult to tell exactly what's happening. I can share with you that we are seeing a number of students whose parents had selected other options for education, joining our school system and staying with us, and we're very grateful for that and appreciate that. And so as you look across the enrollment for our high schools, if you compare 2021, 2022, which is the year we just finished, using our month 2 average daily membership number, East Carteret, we'll start there, was at 546. 10 years ago, 2012-13, they were at 538, so pretty similar number there. Croatan High School was at 908, 10 years ago at 894. They feel like they're significantly up this year, and we'll see after the first 10 days of school. You'll see the 4 years that MAST has had students, and of course, we'll have the class of 2023, you'll be there for this coming school year. This coming school year is not listed. These are actual numbers. West Carteret High School, 1131 in 2021, 2022. 1214, so about 100 students, not quite 100 students larger 10 years ago. It is telling, I think, to take just a moment and compare 2021-22 to 2017-2018. That's the year before Hurricane Florence. And so as we take a look there, East Carteret still pretty similar numbers, Croatan pretty similar numbers, West Carteret down a bit. And so as we look at that, we seem to have a pretty stable enrollment across our high schools Though if you look at just the last 3 years, you'll actually see growth in our high schools as we've come back from the pandemic. So it feels like, and it's just a feeling, but it feels like our enrollment is actually growing. And at least from the real estate market last year, that would tend to make sense with the number of houses we see being purchased. Looking at school enrollment, the school closure statute and the resolution asks that we look at the impact of this question of the possibility of closing Mast after the graduation of the class of 2023, and what that might do to our traditional high schools. Had we enrolled freshman classes for the class of 2024, the class of 2025, and the class of 2026, you would see that Croatan High School would have 55 fewer students, East Carteret would have 30 fewer students, and West Carteret High School would have 65 fewer students based on the current enrollment at those schools. Those are proportionate numbers. The resolution passed in 2019 required that the enrollment would be proportionate to the enrollment in those schools in our school system. And so in terms of the impact on the schools, because the schools have the classes of 24, 25, and 26, the traditional high schools in school, the impact on the enrollment would be negligible or minimal, at least in the immediate future. As you know, we're underway, as Mr. Paler shared, with academic facilities being increased at Croatan High School and later in the bond project at West Carteret. The resolution and the statute also ask for consideration of geographic conditions. As you know, our county is extremely unique. It is very long, as I've discovered over the course of the last 2+ years. To get from one end to the other takes quite a while. High school students who live in our eastern or western parts of the county generally live closer to their traditional high schools than they might to Mast, which is located closer to the center of the county. As a result, many of the students who might attend the early college high school potentially pass East Carteret and Croatan on their way to school. For West Carteret High School, the difference in the mileage is negligible because they're located in such close proximity. The next area was to look at the inconvenience and hardships. In addition to the possible challenges caused by the closure of Mast that's been addressed previously, there's 3 additional potential inconveniences or hardships that have been identified by students, parents, and community members advocating for the continued operation of Mast. That advocacy has taken place in comments to the Board of Education during Board of Education meetings and emails we've received, and certainly quite a bit of information was in the 2019 study in terms of the feelings of parents and others. Those 3 areas, number 1, the Career and College Promise Program entry requirements for students attending traditional high schools, limiting student access to community college courses is one of the things we've heard. Second is the cost of college textbooks and associated fees. And then third, the transportation to Carteret Community College. And so as we look at those 3 inconvenience or hardships, I want to start and spend a few moments on Career and College Promise Program entry requirements. From information from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, the Career and College Promise Program, the purpose of that program is to offer structured opportunities for qualified high school students to dually enroll in community college courses that lead to a certificate, diploma, or degree, as well as provide entry-level job skills tuition-free. And so the Career and College Promise Program has 3 entry points. One of those 3 entry points is a cooperative innovative high school. And so Mast is a part of CCP. And sometimes we think of it as 2 different things, but actually Mast is one of the 3 legs of the Career and College Promise Program. And so one way that students could access the Career and College Promise Program is through a cooperative innovative high school like Mast. There are 2 other ways, and that is the college transfer pathway and then the career and technical education pathway. Even students at a cooperative innovative high school like Mast still have to access the CCP program, Career and College Promise Program, through one of the 2 pathways, college transfer or the career and technical education pathway. On this slide, I tried to capture some of the entry requirements. And so the first I wanted to take a look at is for Career and College Promise entry requirements for those students who would be enrolled in MAST are enrolled in MAST or would apply to enroll in MAST. And so students who are enrolled in MAST are eligible to take college courses through the community college by virtue of being a student of MAST. There are no further requirements in terms of other than standard course prerequisites, just because they're already a part of the Innovative High School, so they can take those classes. To enroll in MAST, and one piece that sometimes we may get past too quickly, is that a student has to be accepted into the early college, high school, into a cooperative innovative high school, and there is a process there. There's an application that has to be filled out. When the school was opened, according to the application the school system and the community college submitted, MAST was operated to serve students who are at risk of dropping out of high school, who are first-generation college students, and or students who would benefit from an accelerated learning instruction. In the application process for a student, students are asked for their student information, the parent's highest educational level, a selection of a desired area of study, 2 teacher recommendation letters, and then a student essay. The MAST Admissions Committee then uses a rubric to score each of those applications. And the criteria that they examine are the following: 1, attendance, major and minor disciplinary infractions, academics and their academic success in math, science, social studies, and English language arts, and then their overall GPA and electives and family college exposure. And so the point is that we certainly do not want to enroll students in a community college course who aren't prepared to be successful in a community college course. And so MAST, as a cooperative innovative high school, as an early college, has an application process in part to make sure that the students who are enrolled in the school will be able to be successful in the community college classes. In terms of the 2 pathways, and I apologize for the size of the fonts there, but essentially we have the college transfer pathway and the career and technical pathway, and all of this is listed in detail in the report. Under the college transfer pathway, you'll see for 11th and 12th graders, there's a set of criteria. This would be for students in our traditional schools. They have to have either a 2.8 GPA or demonstrate college readiness. For our 9th and 10th graders, you'll see there's actually 6 items that are required. One being identified as AIG. They need to demonstrate college readiness in English, math, and on an approved assessment, the verification from both the principal and the AIG coordinator, approval from the community college chief academic officer, Dr. Brown, written consent from the parent and guardian, and then receive academic advising. So all of that's in place for the college transfer program. For the career and technical pathway, you'll see similar but different. For 11th and 12th graders, they need to have a 2.8 GPA or demonstrate that they have college readiness for English, math, and an approved assessment, or approval from the principal and the college's chief academic officer. For 9th and 10th graders, you'll see principal and college chief academic officer recommendation. And I've actually highlighted that because there's an opportunity under the career and technical pathway for traditional students who may not otherwise meet the requirements for the principal and the college's chief academic officer to come together and actually waive the other requirements to allow a student who would benefit. And so, for example, if we had a student who did very well in a hands-on activity, for example, welding, and felt like they would be very successful in a welding program, but perhaps had not done as well in their English class or math class, and there was a demonstrable need, and the principal and Dr. Brown agreed that the rest of the requirements could be waived, and that student would be able to access that curriculum. Now, there have been very few students over the course of the last 5 years who've asked for that waiver. And so as I hear that, I wonder if we're doing the job that we need to do in terms of communicating to all of our students the opportunities they have. And certainly that's something we always want to improve in. In addition to the requirements I've listed for the 2 pathways, there are also additional requirements for students in traditional schools taking college courses. Those include for freshmen and sophomores, they may only enroll in specific course areas, those being engineering, industrial courses, agriculture and natural resources, transportation systems, and construction and business technologies. For For freshmen and sophomores, they may not enroll in a pathway that includes what's called UGETC, and if you have detailed questions about that, I will turn to the folks in the back of the room, because that's a community college construct, but it's the Universal General Education Transfer courses. The CTE Pathways and Programs have some additional restrictions, which include the Fire Academy. You must be 17 to be a part of that, and the Health Science Program only allows juniors and seniors due to the program age restrictions. And so there are some additional requirements for our students through the traditional high school to access the college transfer pathway or the career and technical education pathway. In terms of within our 3 traditional high schools, if the students don't meet the eligibility requirements, but they have an interest in taking college courses, then we have a group of individuals, of employees, whose job it is to meet with our students individually to help them with their future career goals. And that includes, as we've referenced earlier, our career development coordinators, the career and college promise coordinators, school counselors, and principals to share with our students and help them understand what avenues are available to help them be successful. And certainly we hope that their parents are a part of those meetings as well. And so at this point, I'll just pause for a moment to say that to ensure all of our school system students and families know about the opportunities available through the College and Career Promise program, whether that's through a cooperative innovative high school or through the 2 pathways I've talked about, we have tried to increase the availability of information about the College and Career program to students through various media outlets. The program requirements have been, are displayed and a part of our printed and digital Carteret County Public Schools course selection guide that we're very proud of. That was completely updated and is being used this year. We're very proud of that. The college also put together an incredible video that features students from Croatan High School, West Carteret High School, and East Carteret High School specifically about the college and the Career and College Promise program. And we appreciate that. And I'm pretty sure that every time I go to the bookstore, Dr. Mancini, it's playing on the TV as I walk in. And so I like seeing our students displayed at the college. We appreciate that. The next area under Inconvenience and Hardships is the cost of college textbooks and associated fees. Within the traditional high schools, students and families are responsible for enrollment fees, specific course fees, and textbook costs, supplies, and required online course subscriptions for classes taken at the college. There is an asterisk there because for last year, as part of the money available to the college at COVID relief, books and fees were waived. That cost was waived for all students. I did confirm with Dr. Mancini that for at least the first semester of this year, we're going into those fees and costs will continue to be waived, and we appreciate those federal dollars and other dollars that make that possible for the citizens of Carteret County, including our students. For students who aren't able to afford those costs associated with a community college course, we do explore other funding sources, and we'll continue to do that to assist our students, including our public schools education foundation, the school's PTO, local school funds, and of course philanthropic donors, and we certainly appreciate them. Should the board make a determination to close Mast Early College High School after the graduation of the class of 2023, our leadership team will propose to the Board of Education to consider adding funding for the CCP program to include the fees and books and required course supplies in future school system budgets in to take care of that cost for students in our traditional high schools, and certainly be something for the board to consider in a future budget should that be the direction the board were to go. Transportation to Carteret Community College, we certainly heard quite a bit about that. And so last year, in response to that concern, the school system began offering bus transportation from each of our 3 traditional high schools to Carteret Community College to assist students in accessing those college courses. Over the course of the school year, only 1 student took advantage of that transportation, and ironically, that student was a West Carteret High School student, so the student who was actually in a school closest to the community college. We'll continue to offer that if that's a service our students need, but we didn't see that at least last year, and some of that may be communication of opportunities, and we'll continue to do a better job with that. One of the things that is a potential challenge is that our trades and technical, or the trades and technical courses at Carteret Community College, often have longer lab times. The students need to spend more time rebuilding an engine or more time in the aquaculture lab because of the nature of the course. And those times can be difficult for students in a traditional high school to work into their high school schedules because of the nature of the bell schedule, the traditional high school. A benefit to Mast Early College is that the community college is able to coordinate schedules with Mast. And of course, there's less transportation needed because the students are right there on campus. In terms of the student needs regarding afternoon transportation, our school system team tries to review those needs on a case-by-case basis, and specific here is for courses that either occur after the end of the day for our traditional high schools. And so ideally, a student taking a course at Carteret Community College would potentially need to ride a bus to the college campus and then ride a bus back to their traditional high school and be able to get on their yellow school bus to go back home. And so they would be able to take advantage of that transportation. If we had a case of a student who needed to take a class that lasted past the 3 p.m. dismissal where they would not be able to get back to their bus from the traditional high school, in that case, on a case-by-case basis, we've worked on trying to come up with all the ways we might be able to help a student in that situation. Should that be a need, we've looked at things like yellow bus transportation, using third-party contract services. We've actually met with county staff who've proposed CCATs as a possibility and something that we think may be able to work for students. If that's a need, we certainly want to make sure that we can help our students access those things that will help them be successful in the future. In terms of expenditures, the closure statute that may or may not apply to a cooperative innovative high school and the resolution asks to take a look at the cost associated with closure. And one of the early questions was actually about the cost of operating Mast. And so I've shared with you here just the bottom line for the expenditures for Mast, state, local, federal, and capital dollars, and you'll see that cost. I do want to note that Mast does not receive the same proportionate share of building and grounds funding that the Board of Education provides to all the other schools, and that's because the community college provides maintenance and custodial services for Mast, and so they don't have that need and consequently don't receive that funding. In terms of the funding received, and this has certainly been referenced often during my tenure, as you know, the funding from the state has been hard to predict because, well, it's just been hard to predict. And so each of the 4 years of operation, if you just look down the state funding, the first year there was $105,000, nothing the second year. The third year, which is my first year as your superintendent, was $305,000. This past year, $180,000. There was certainly conversation about those dollars not being recurring in the past. As of the last state budget, those are recurring dollars, and so that funding has been put in place. We receive $180,000, and that funding is separate and apart from the ADM funding. Most of the state funding that we receive is based on our average daily membership, and so that funding is there to be used for every student in every school, and so these dollars do not reflect the ADM funding that we receive for the students who are at Mast. So that would be additional funding coming in addition to the funding that we've received while the school has been open. And so in terms of actual cost associated, should the board make the determination to close Mast after the graduation of the class of 2023, one of the first potential costs would be teaching positions. The reason for that is that at the time the board opened Mast, the decision was made not to pull teachers out of the traditional high schools to open Mast. So new positions were created for Mast Early College High School, and so as if the school were to be closed, we would not be needing to hire additional teachers for the traditional high schools because the Mast students would be returning to those traditional high schools because we didn't remove those teachers to start with. So there's no additional expenses in terms of closing with regards to teaching positions. And in fact, as the size of the school has gotten smaller, and so we have less need of teachers in terms of the number of courses that need to be taught for the last year junior and senior class, this year senior class, those teachers who've been teaching at Mast are available to pick up sections and schedules at our traditional high schools, and so there's actually been some cost savings. And so we appreciate being able to use those high-quality teachers to continue to serve students in Carteret County. In terms of additional cost associated with closure, the cost of providing daily transportation to Carteret Community College, this would be for students across the county from our three high schools, is $17,436. The question was asked if that includes the cost of an employee. That is just the mileage cost we would use during the school day, employees who are already employed. So there would be an opportunity cost, to use an economic term, because that employee wouldn't be available to do something else because they'd be driving the bus, but there wouldn't be an additional salary cost for that. And so the cost associated with closure that we were able to tease out would be simply that daily transportation cost. As the board knows, we actually started that last year, and so that would not necessarily be specific cost to closing if that's the decision the board made. The next area I was asked to take a look at, and the team was asked to take a look at, was similar programming. And so here we looked at the total number of associate's degrees, trade certifications, and credentials earned during Mast operation 2018 to the present. Extremely proud of the success of the students at Mast. It has been a great honor to celebrate with them at graduation, to celebrate with them. I was very honored when Dr. Mancini invited me to be a part of the community college graduation and to actually celebrate with our students who are earning associate's degrees. You'll see that to date, Mast students have earned 18 associate's degrees in the same time period. We've not had a student at traditional high school earn an associate's degree. They've earned 19 trade certifications. Our traditional students in our traditional high schools have earned 7. In terms of credentials, the students in the 3 traditional high schools have earned 3,143 credentials. We're extremely proud of that. You'll see a couple of asterisks there under Mast, and that's because the way the community college operates, third-party industry recognized credentials are not tracked as part of the college's performances measures, and so they're not uniformly recorded, but are left to the individual student's discretion and readiness to register and apply for testing. So it's possible that an individual student registered and applied for testing for a credential, that number is just not available. So we don't know if there were credentials that were earned by Mast students because they individually applied to take those as part of the community college coursework. The credentials, in terms of what are credentials, those are credentials are recognized by the North Carolina Career and Technical Education, are typically endorsed by business and industry and provide documentation for student mastery of skills required for employment and advancement in career. And so we took a look at that under the area of similar programming. In terms of the next area, it was asked to seek the sentiments of the Carteret County Board of Commissioners. In an email from the Carteret County manager on July 29th, he responded, the Carteret County Board of Commissioners support closing Mast Early College High School after the graduation of the class of 2023. In terms of the sentiments of Carteret Community College, the chair of the, sorry, I was about to call her the president, the chair of the Community College Board of Trustees, Melody Darden, provided a letter dated July 31st, 2022 that's a part of the report, and you have the entirety of that letter. For the purposes of the presentation, I pulled out a couple of quotes. The first, Carteret Community College believes Mast has been an effective educational option for the students who have attended since the fall of 2018. Later, she says, despite enduring the devastating loss of Alex Doss in the charter class's freshman year, Hurricanes Florence and Dorian, the COVID-19 pandemic, and ongoing uncertainty about the future of their school, the students and staff of Mast and the faculty and administration of the college have persevered in good faith to create a strong educational and social experience for the students who, along with their families, made a deliberate choice to pursue a different high school pathway. In terms of other relevant information, in the April 5th, 2022 resolution, the Board of Education also called for a public hearing on the question of closing MAST after the graduation of the class of 2023. That public hearing was held on June 7th, 2022. The comments were summarized in the board study report, and they're also available to be viewed in their entirety on the school system's YouTube channel. The 5 speakers represented two mothers, 1 dad, 1 student, and 1 community member. Finally, in summary, I'd just like to make a couple of quick statements. Our school system staff members in each and every school in the school system are committed to the safety and well-being of all of our students. The school system will continue to pivot in operations and offerings as needed to fulfill the school system's mission statement to inspire, educate, and empower students for life through relationships, knowledge, and opportunity. Like students enrolled in MAST, traditional school students have the opportunity to participate in dual enrollment and trade certifications at Carteret Community College. Regardless of the decision of the Board of Education on the question of closing MAST after the graduation of the class of 2023, it's crucial that all students and parents and guardians are aware of these opportunities. Increased focus on community college pathways will increase opportunities for students to complete associate's degrees and trade certificates. The school system will continue to partner with the community college to provide additional training for our administrators and counselors in the dual enrollment options, as well as those processes, procedures, and best practices in identifying potential career and college promise participants, monitoring the participants' progress, and continually providing opportunities that will allow our students to be successful. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions the board members may have.
Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Jackson. Do any board members have any thoughts, questions on this? There are no questions. What I would like the board members to do, we are going to make a decision in a month, one way or the other. I would like us to take this month and thoughtfully reflect on this. I would like for anybody in the audience, you can get our phone numbers online. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you want to talk to us. And you know, we each formulate our own opinions and thoughts, hopefully based on due diligence. And I think I know this board well enough to know that we've put time and effort into this particular issue. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you so choose. I'm willing to talk to anybody, person to person, at any point. So what I'd also like to see is when we make a decision, if possible, I'd like, to give a heartfelt reason why we are deciding the way we are. I think that's a fair way to do that. And so I appreciate the effort everybody's put into this. And again, please don't hesitate to reach out. And with that, you're still up, Dr. Jackson, because now you get to say your superintendent comments whenever you get back to your chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, Mr. Chair, I'd like to officially welcome you to the 2022-2023 school year. As you heard in Ms. McClenny's presentation tonight, our students and staff have been incredibly busy this summer. Our leadership team members, which include our assistant principals, directors, and cabinet staff, will be meeting over the next 2 days to continue working hard on ensuring that our students are both literate and numerate. During the last 2 years, our students have led the state in academic, artistic, and athletic endeavors and are poised for even more success this year. Our theme this year is Light the Way. As we shine forth a light of excellence, hard work, and community, we aspire to lead public education beyond the challenges of the pandemic, fully immersed in ensuring our students are well prepared for a bright future. We look forward to welcoming our MAST teachers back tomorrow as they begin the school year, and all other teachers on August 16th. In a return of a beloved tradition, convocation will be August 23rd for all school system employees as over 1,100 gather together as the Carteret County Public Schools family to launch our greatest year ever. The school year is officially underway next week as our math students return to school on Tuesday, August 9th. All other students return to school on Monday, August 29th. Mr. Chairman and board members, we have been, we are, and we will remain Carteret strong. Mr. Chair.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Do I have any questions, comments, or thoughts from any board members?
I did. I wanted to thank the commissioners for their funding for school resource officers. This is the first year we're going into a school year with funded positions in every school, especially for funding, match funding for any schools that were in municipalities, including Tiller. I think that really showed tangible proof they care about every student in this county. To the town of Newport, Beaufort, and Moorhead, who all funded the positions and took advantage of that match funding. I'm very thankful for all of them. The town of Pineville Shores even put in funding for Moorhead City and contributed their part. In that, they did ask us to look at how other SROs are funded across the state. And I don't want to speak for everyone up here, but I'm sure we would be thrilled if they were funded as the high schools are from the state level for every middle and elementary school. So I'm hopeful we can lobby with teachers, other school boards to hopefully see that in future funding.
Thank you, Katie. Any other questions or thoughts? And on that subject, I'd like to thank Katie for being a bulldog, especially with a particular town. But thank you. I appreciate you. I'll end this. I happened to be on a little mission trip recently, and unbeknownst to me, some educators were on this mission trip as well. And there was a retired educator, recently retired, who has spent quite a long time in the Carteret County school system. And I was sitting there talking to this person, and they were telling me how hard it was for them to retire because it was the best team that this person, central office team, that this person had ever worked with in this person's whole career. And I was beaming with pride. And obviously, this person was talking about y'all. So I wanted to pass that along because when I'm sitting in the jungles of Costa Rica and someone is praising y'all, y'all need to know that. So let's keep it up, and thank you so much. With that said, we are looking for a motion to go into a closed session.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, I may not have written down one of the items added to the agenda, and you may have already done it, but it had to do with MOU for Career and College Promise. I don't know if y'all did that and it just passed me or whether it got overlooked.
If I may, yes, sir, we added that to the consent agenda.
Consent agenda, very
Yes,
good.
sir. Thank you.
And I'm also supposed to tell y'all our next meeting is September 6th, and I look forward to seeing you there. With that said, I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session.
Move we go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A6.
Reverend Goodwin has made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Day has made a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Very good. We're in closed session. Thank y'all for coming tonight.